Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We are going to give it a few minutes just to let everybody come. I think we're hopefully going to have somewhere around 70 people joining, which will be fantastic. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes to let everybody come in. There will be links in your invitation to each of the companies of the people that we're speaking to this afternoon. So feel free to have a little bit of a browse around what they do, but they'll all be giving you an introduction into who they are and what they do. So that'll be great. So again, welcome. Thank you for coming. I can't actually see how many people have joined, so I'm just going to talk for a little while and hope that you all come in and enjoy what we're talking about. So the point of today and what we're doing. So my name is Brianna Gladman. I am the Hello, Lewis. Nice to see you. I am the Canberra Node Manager for AustCyber. So my role in this is to support and promote our Canberra cybersecurity ecosystem, looking after some of the companies along their journey from startup all the way up to hopefully exporting and becoming large and successful. So what we're doing in this case, of course, is looking into the career pathways into cybersecurity. People in CIT obviously are incredibly important to us. We want to ensure that you guys have as much visibility around the pathway to cybersecurity as you can have. So hence putting this together, being able to make a platform to meet and hear from cybersecurity companies that employ people from the vocational pathway and also support your journey along the way. Obviously, we would have liked to have this in person. We would have had a lot more cybers for you to meet, but today we've got 4 incredible people to talk to who will be talking to you and answering your questions. So hopefully you guys will get something really valuable out of this. So what I'll do from this point is I will ask everybody one at a time, preferably, to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, how they got into cyber. Everybody's journey is quite different, what their company does, and some really interesting facts about what they do. So we'll start with Ken, if that's okay. We've got Ken Hendry, who is the founder and director of PsyConsole. I'll start with you.
No problem at all. Thanks for that, Brianna. Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Hendry, director and founder of PsyConsole. We're a company that started about 2.5 years ago. Our focus is very much on both cyber and ICT engineering in the information technology space. We work fairly heavily with Canberra federal government, but also have some clients all around Australia. Both government and private around Australia. Our big selling points in the market is around our independence, so delivering security and IT solutions that are not vendor-based. They're all about delivering the best products and solutions for a company, so understanding their business requirements and really being that quality, trusted advisor to organizations. So an organization can call us, ask us for advice, and we can give them the best advice for their situation. COVID has really thrown some curveballs in the way in which the company has grown. As a result, we have people working for us in many places around Australia at the moment. Our latest in Darwin, which is not something I was expecting 18 months ago, but COVID has allowed us to do more work from home and to find good people from all over Australia who can work for us, which has been really fantastic. We partner with a lot of other Australian companies as well to deliver on services, and are focused on both the technical and GRC, so governance, risk, compliance aspect of IT and security. So things like security and IT audits, threat and risk assessments, development of policies, IT security as a service, but also on the technical side, penetration testing, security administration engineering, code reviews, security operations, and things like that. As a company, we actually favour CIT and TAFE students. I myself am a TAFE student from Wagga Wagga regional campus there. We like students from CIT TAFE because they have real hands-on experience. We find that they can just sort of get in and get things done. They have more practical hands-on knowledge when they go through that sort of course curriculum. My journey in security is a bit odd, I guess. I am from the Junee Wagga area, and when I was in year 12, I got early entry to both TAFE and CSU University. At the time, I liked the idea of having more hands-on learning with IT. I was heading down a network engineering administration path, so I really wanted to be able to play with technology, not just sort of learn about it from a textbook. So I actually went to TAFE first for 1.5 years and got a diploma in network engineering. And then an opportunity arose where I could use the entire 1.5 years credit and go apply that directly to a CSU degree. So I did that at the time just because 2 certificates for the price of 1 effectively from a time perspective. But even today, the things I learned at TAFE were incredibly valuable to me, more so than, no offense to CSU, the things I learned at university. I learned risk management there, administration, network engineering, things that I still put into play and use every day today. Before I finished university, unfortunately, Wagga isn't a bad place, but the amount of IT jobs amounts to about 1 total, especially when I was there. So I started looking for jobs in Canberra, and I was lucky enough to get offers from 3 different places. I think it was DESI, Department of Employment at the time. I think one was DFAT, and then another to a completely unknown consultancy called StratSec. Unfortunately, they're no longer around. The security industry is known for companies getting bought out, and unfortunately that was their fate eventually. But they were a fantastic company that had great mentors that allowed me to build a lot of the skills that I have today. One thing I would say is that the 2 Australian government jobs at the time did offer more money and did offer even more incentives and things like that. But I chose StratSec because I could see the people in the organisation were people that I could really learn from. You know, if I could say anything, is to try and surround yourself with people that you can learn from. It's one of those valuable things that I ever did, actually, was joining that company and taking that risk, and in a startup as well. There's something about startup culture that just forces you to learn so much more than if you're in an established larger organization. Over the years, through StratSec for about 7 years, security consultant, building my way up, eventually running consulting services. And then after that company's buyout, I jumped between a number of organizations, some good, some interesting, until I eventually got the opportunity to start PsyConsole as a practice. And here we are 2.5 years later. I guess if I was to say anything about the things that have been very valuable to me, one is continuous learning. Cybersecurity is crazy as far as how fast it moves. There are things changing almost every minute. You need to be constantly evolving your skills, not just if you're technical, if you're also governance, risk, compliance focus, or that policy focus, you need to be constantly evolving your skill set. Industry involvement, I've been heavily involved in Osaka, but very early on, understanding all the industry groups and getting involved in the community, not just showing up to events, actually trying to get involved in committees and the actual advancement of our industry was really important to me, especially from a community basis, but just learning. And as I said before, trying to surround yourself with people that you can learn from, it was invaluable to me. Is that all good, Brenna?
That's fantastic. Thank you, Ken. It's really interesting. And there's going to be some questions very much around that idea of upskilling and reskilling through career as well. So that might be something that you can talk to in a little while as well, which would be great. We might move on to Damon. Damon Scott is the head of partnerships and head of the cadet program at Aegis 9.
Hi, Brianna. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Glad you could make it this afternoon. I don't think my story is going to be anywhere near as exciting as interesting as Ken's, but hopefully I'll make it a little bit entertaining for you along the way. So I work for Aegis 9. Aegis 9 is a Canberra born and bred organisation that focuses in on cybersecurity consulting. We specialise in the area of enterprise risk, governance, as well as IRAP assessment, penetration testing, and a number of other, I suppose, what you would describe as above the line fields. So whilst we are actively involved in helping organisations, particularly government, shape their cybersecurity strategies and helping them build their systems to a level of robustness, we also provide certification services alongside that as well. So making sure when they need that independent third party to come along and verify that Aegis 9 is geared towards providing those kind of services. As Brianna said, I'm head of partnerships and stakeholder engagement. For the fun of it as well, Aegis 9 has also asked me to take on board the traineeship or our cadet program as well. So this is a building area for Aegis 9. We've made a conscious choice to invest in growth of cybersecurity skills, obviously with a particular focus on the Canberra crew. I'm sure that will grow and evolve as time goes on. My journey into cybersecurity has been a very long and elongated path, and I'm sure that's similar to many of my colleagues on the call today. About 900,000 years ago, or so it seems, I started life as a pastry chef. Yes, I still cook to this day. I'd like to think I'm good at it. I'm sure other people will tell you I'm not. But I decided that whilst food is a really, really great thing to do on a weekend, it's Monday through Friday, is probably not something that I really wanted to do. And at that stage in my life, I was very much a loose end. Wasn't sure where I was going, what I was going to do, or how I was going to get there. But that's the joy of being in your early 20s, I suppose. Time is still on your side. So I happened to meet a couple of very interesting people who became mentors for me very early on, and guided me down the path of pursuing a career in IT. Not being the technically capable individual as many others are, I chose the route of sales and marketing, and came into cybersecurity through the better part of 20 years of sales, corporate management, and business operations. So whilst I'm not directly related to the tools, I do have a very good understanding of the business environment and the way in which we choose to operate organizationally and across the industry as well. I'm really not sure what else I can tell you at this point. I'm probably going to leave it there and pass on to some of my more learned colleagues who can add some real value into their particular pathways into the industry.
Thanks, Damon. I think it shows as well that often it's not always a technical pathway that gets you into cyber. My own pathway certainly isn't technical at all. So it's an interesting side when you look at the different things that you can do within cyber. We might move on to Anantha. Thank you. Anantha is the co-founder and director of engineering at Terran Labs.
Hi guys, I'm Anantha. So I'm, as Brianna said, I'm one of the co-founders. I'm also the engineering director here at Terran Labs. So Terran Labs, myself and Juan Gonzalez started Terran Labs back in late 2018. We were at the time both working at the same organization, BAE Systems, which was the company that ended up buying StratSec, the company that Ken started at. It was a small company, got bought over by a bigger one. And we started Terran Labs late 2018. We kind of weren't fully operational until 2019. So we've been around up and running for about 2 and a bit years. So the main thing that we deal with is information security testing. Now, so if some organization or some vendor would like to sell into a certain industry and or a certain kind of certain agency or certain into a certain field, and that agency or a field requires a certain level of assurance about the product, be it software or be it hardware. They send it to us. We carry out testing according to standards. So we carry out not just pen testing on the device, we also carry out devices. We also carry out in-depth level of how they meet certain information security standards, and also how they meet relevant other criteria, which is useful, not useful, quite actually mandatory to their secure operation. So we mainly here deal with two major standards, which is one of which is common criteria. We also deal with FIPS 140, which involves cryptographic testing. We also do some pen testing work, and also consulting related to like protocol testing and things like that. So we believe that, I guess, so people approach us when they need that assurance. So as a company, we've actually grown quite fast. Most of our clients are international, be it, you know, the likes of like very large manufacturers, actually, quite like Cisco and Microsoft and the like, to even smaller manufacturers who want to make sure that the security that they've implemented in their products are up to scratch. And we work with all these large organizations. We have an office in Deakin here where people ship their devices or products, and we test them out here. And we also, COVID hasn't really affected as much as some others, because Canberra has been pretty good to us in a sense. But since most of our clients are international, they're kind of, we're still working quite judiciously towards actually servicing our clients there. And it's almost kind of, because essentially it's almost like a 24/7 environment, in the sense that you're working with people on the West Coast of the US, and you're also working with people on the East Coast. Sometimes you're working with people in Europe. So it's kind of moves around the clock. So yeah, so I myself started in this journey. So I have a background in software engineering. So I started off back in Queensland, University of Queensland. I had some opportunities to either, as with Ken, or Ken to, like Ken, sorry, to join either the government or the private sector. I ended up choosing to go the private sector route, just because the private sector offers a lot more hands-on experience compared to government. So I've actually worked for both government and private. That's my frank assessment, because I've worked with, my initial thing I did a cadetship at the Australian Taxation Office, which lasted about 6 months. Then I left that and I joined the graduate program over at IBM. Now, IBM is a huge organization. I joined up at one of their small labs that they had in the Gold Coast. It was part of the Australian Development Laboratories Network. That itself operated like a small little organization within the whole big world that's IBM. So we were kind of left to our own devices over there, and it still operates to this day. There's a lot of talent there. And so I learned a lot from there. I then moved on to RSA security, because I got tired of traveling between Brisbane and Gold Coast, Southport really every day. So I moved there, moved to RSA security. Then I moved back into the tax office, did a stint there, then moved back to RSA security, and then came over to, well, then I briefly did a stint in central Queensland, where IT jobs aren't that available. So I was working as I guess, working multiple jobs, one of which included being a pizza delivery driver there. But I then, the reason I moved to central Queensland, because my wife needed to do teaching placements. So they moved her to central Queensland. So from there, once she finished her placement, I moved to Canberra, where I joined up at BAE Systems, and now I'm here. So it's been a roundabout kind of journey. It's taken a bit of, pretty much taken me to different places. So it's still does to this day take the company as a whole to different places. So because a lot of our clients are international, we do, when pre-COVID, we do travel a lot to different parts of the world and to meet with our clients. But unfortunately, due to COVID, everything's been through video conferencing and whatnot. So in terms of the work we do, a lot of it's uncleared. You don't need a security clearance for a lot of the work we do. We prefer to work with permanent residents or Australian citizens, just in case that there is some things down the line that might require a bit more of a, I guess, a little bit more of a stricter security protocol. But yeah, a lot of the clients are international, and a lot of the work that we do is it would be commercial in confidence. So that does not require you to have a security clearance, which is great. And I myself find that, as I alluded to before, I found that working for a private company is often the best way you could expand on your experience, and also because you're working in a much smaller set of team, and you're also working in much smaller organizations, being in a private company, and you really get to, so you get essentially thrown into the deep end, and you have to essentially, you build up all these skills that you're kind of hands-on from day one. You're not, I guess, you will experience a lot more in the sense that there's no kind of, like a lot of private organizations, we would trust you to do a lot more of the in-depth hands-on stuff than a lot of the government organizations. So in that sense, working for a startup or a small private organization is the best way you can develop your cyber skills. So I guess that's about what I had to say. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them up.
Thanks, Anantha. Excellent. And now we're, last but not least, of course, Andrew Muller, who is the founder and managing director of Ionize, and obviously a big friend of the node as well. So thank you, Andrew. If you would, introduce yourself and let us know what you do.
Thank you very much, Brianna, and thank you, AusCyber, for putting on this event. Lucky last. I've got a tough act to follow. 3 amazing stories from 3 amazing companies. And I guess one of the things that's quite exciting about all of those three stories is the diversity of backgrounds of all these different people. Damon's story is astonishing and not that unusual. I've seen some of the best cybersecurity people in the industry have come from a domain wildly different to cybersecurity, and I find that it often gives them the best perspective of how to deal with cybersecurity problems. That they're not, they're typically not, involving death and destruction, and you know how to prioritize them with the worldview. So I also want to thank everyone for turning up as well. Thank you for your time. It's you could have spent your time this afternoon doing a multitude of things. You've decided to be with us, and we really do appreciate it. So our journey, OINO's journey, we started 10 plus years ago, incorporated in Canberra. We've got folks, much like Ken mentioned, all over the place now. We're working throughout Australia and also in the region, within the Southeast Asia region. So I'm going to be echoing a lot of what's been said before. What we do, we have 4 domains in our business. We've got our governance, risk and compliance domain. We've got our offensive cybersecurity domain, which is red teaming, pen testing, defensive, which is engineering and analysis, including SOC, and training. So that's our 4th domain. I guess more than what we do, and this is what the other 3 guys have touched on, is why we do what we've done. So a lot of us have chosen this for reasons beyond just technical aspirations. Most of the time we're doing this because we genuinely want to help. We are effectively trying to give warm cyber hugs to the rest of the world who don't really understand the cyber domain, and we're really keen to help in any way that we can. I guess more of what I wanted to talk about is how do you break into the industry? So having many discussions with TAFE students and university students, as I think Ken and Damon and Anantha are all mentioned, is that to break into the industry, particularly in Canberra, you need 2 things, basically. Regrettably, one is a security clearance, typically. 9 times out of 10. There are other sorts of clients that we have, but government does dominate this particular geography. So you need an Australian citizenship to achieve that, as well as a company who is able to sponsor your security clearance or find a way to have the security clearance sponsored. And the second most important part is an opportunity. And that's what everyone here, all the panelists here, are offering to you, is an opportunity. We're all deeply passionate about the industry that we're in, and we're very, very passionate about giving people an opportunity, that first step up, to be able to gain the experience. I mean, we've all seen, all read the Seek ads. Everyone's looking for 5 years experience of a cyber this or that. I mean, where the heck do you get it? You only get it from people like the panelists here who are going to give you that opportunity. So you reach out and ask for that opportunity. What things are going on? What do I need? That's what you need to be asked. So that's what the Q&A has been full of, which is fantastic. And that's the sort of interaction that's required if you want to get that first opportunity and start to build that experience that you need. What I would also encourage you to think about is those sorts of niches within cyber that don't yet exist. So we spoke about, I think it was Ken mentioned before, and others as well, that there's a wide variety of backgrounds. People have got a multitude of experience, and all of it is important. All of it builds upon each other to bring you to this point where you are now looking for that entry into the cybersecurity industry. So I would encourage you to think about the niches that don't yet exist or aren't yet filled. And they're weird and wonderful things, like the term cyber humanities I've heard coined before. Some people laugh at it, but I actually think the people who laugh at it are people who don't have any imagination. There's things that don't yet exist. I mean, the cybersecurity industry didn't exist 100 years ago. No one could have even dreamt of it 100 years ago. So don't be constrained by your imagination as to the sorts of niches you could potentially fill within the cybersecurity domain. And then reach out to folks like the panelists here. There's a multitude of experience. Ken's explained a lot of his deep experience in a multitude of settings, as has Anantha, and as has Damon in a completely different industry. reach out to them and pitch it to them. Say, look, I'm thinking something completely wild and crazy. What do you think? And get the feedback. So getting involved with the community as well. I think that's there's quite a lot of cyber community in Canberra. I know myself, I've been involved in trying to build a lot of it as much as possible, not for, just to basically have this resource at our fingertips where we can reach out to folks and ask them these insane questions or get their help with something. So that's another way to basically build your ability to break into the industry. I'd also hit the socials as well. Get on LinkedIn after this. I'm sure Brianna will give us a whole bunch of links that we can tweet out and LinkedIn posts and all that sort of stuff. It might feel weird to do that sort of stuff, but I have seen several people who have really kickstarted their careers coming out of a Cert 4 in cybersecurity, have hit the socials hard, and basically let everybody know, bar no one, that what they want to do and the sort of thing that they're looking for, and they got it. So that's another basically tool to use to help you crack into the industry. But more than anything, you've got like an amazing resource of all the panelists here, and I include Brianna in that as well. Like, she's incredibly well connected around the cyber community. Reach out and ask how, what do you need? And also, I guess one of the other things you'll probably need to know is what it is that you would like to do. Often we don't know. Because there's just so many domains within cybersecurity, so many specializations. So again, just reach out and ask about what's out there. What could I possibly do? Sometimes you won't know until you actually try it, and then you realize, oh, actually, I don't really like this. So you'll pivot to something else. So don't be afraid to do that either. I know within our team, we've had a multitude of people who've come in as one thing and then just gone, oh, actually, I want to do more of that. So they've pivoted off to something else, which is entirely fine. I think we have like how many careers, like 10 careers by the end of our lifetime. So you just be adding to that. So there's lots of good resources right in this webinar, but there's also a much broader community which Brianna will help you connect with post this webinar. Thanks, Brianna.
Thank you, Andrew. And I think Andrew touched on an incredibly important point, which obviously for our students attending, it's going to be something that you'll learn as you come along, but the community aspect. And I always say, I don't know what everybody else in Australia is like, but our Canberra cybersecurity community truly is a community where we share and we talk, and you have a lot of people that are often even in the same in direct competition with each other, but they work really well together and they share information. They will share what they're doing, what's happening in the world of cyber, which is fantastic. This morning, I had one of the cybers actually contact me and say, hey, so we're looking for somebody who's got this capability, having a little trouble trying to find that. Can you help me find the right person? And of course, that's going to be something that we'll be looking at and seeing how we can connect that, which I think is a fantastic opportunity for the industry, which I'm not always sure happens in a lot of the other industries, and that altruism of wanting to do good things. Talking about socials, I post a video recently, and there's going to be a couple more coming along, and it's telling the story of why the cybersecurity companies why they do what they do, basically. So all of our nodes across our cyber nationally actually are publishing these videos at the moment, which I think for the students you'd find really interesting, because it's a lot of the same thing that the guys are talking about today, how they got into cyber, why they got into cyber, and often it is just really that good feeling of community and what you want to do to protect our society for a bunch of different reasons, which is really interesting. So thank you guys. That was a really great insight into where you've come from and why you got where you are now and what's coming next. So again, a really good point of shifting careers. Damon starting as a pastry chef and everybody else sort of coming from where they come from is a great story. So we'll jump into the questions, and I can see the chat has been incredibly active. So I'm really glad that you guys are getting in and engaging with the panelists as well. So we'll try and keep those going at the same time. But we've also got the questions that you guys had submitted to us when you registered, which is excellent. So thank you for that. I think what we might start with is one of the questions was, what is the most important thing to know about the cybersecurity when you start as a graduate? So unless somebody wants to put their hand up to answer this first, I'm just going to pick one of you at random. And random it is. Ken.
By random, do you mean you choose me first every time? Is that?
You may be at the top corner of my screen, so that could be why.
What is most important? As I mentioned before, security is a very rapidly changing industry. It is, at any point in time in my day, I have a news feed to my left, just going crazy with the latest vulnerabilities, the latest news, things like that. There's a lot that goes on when it comes to cybersecurity, and continually advancing your education and understanding of how it all fits together, what it actually means in the context of businesses. What does it mean? Is probably one of the really important things, and being able to continuously educate yourself and evolve your understanding of that is really important. From an employment point of view, being able to demonstrate that understanding is going to be really critical. So, for example, say we've got 60 plus people on this call, all of you going for fairly similar certificates. All of you are going to have the same byline in your education going for jobs. How can you demonstrate your understanding of this area over the other 59 people on this call, for example? So part of that continuing education is, go set up a lab. There's cloud services you get for free for a year. Go and do projects that, one, advance your understanding, but also in a way that you can then demonstrate to potential employers. One thing I didn't mention earlier is one of the things that got me into StratSec, weirdly enough, was one of my parents was in food technology, in food export. And I just automated the calculation of pH levels through a process. And my mentors, one of the mentors I was mentioning before, who was fantastic, had a background in food export. Because cyber people come from all over the place. But it demonstrated that I could not only just read a book and take an exam and pass certification, but I can actually take that knowledge and apply it to real business problems. So that continuing education, continually evolving your skill set, being in the know is what I would say.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Oh, Andrew, did you want to jump in?
Oh, I'd like to add to it. Yeah, so just extrapolating a little bit on what one of the things that Ken said was, I look for something that you've done before. So rather than waiting for the experience to come, going out and getting it, hunting it down. Like Ken said, there's a multitude of free training out there, and just going and doing it and saying, okay, well, I've done X, Y, and Z. I've written a few bits and bobs, and so just demonstrating the passion and desire to to work in the space as if you're behaving like you're already in the industry effectively.
Thank you. I think that's a really clear directive too, because that is, as we discussed, I can't remember who said it, but cyber changes so much. I mean, the word cyber wasn't even really used that frequently not that long ago. It was InfoSec was where we started, and before that, whatever we call it, computer science.
Quality IT.
IT, yeah, exactly. Then we just keep adding letters, right?
Yeah.
So definitely that idea around the continual education, continual development, and looking at things that are going to also supplement what you're doing. So there's such a scope to what you can do within cyber, within both technical, non-technical, but also, as the guys have all mentioned, various different kinds of roles that you can do. There were some questions around what further development is, what further development would you be looking for your say either recent grads that you're employing or new hires? What would you be looking for them to be continually learning? Where would you point them in to find some new qualifications or certifications along the way? And again, I'm going to wait for a hand, or I'm going to dob somebody in.
I'll jump in here and just have a quick go. Look, to be honest with you, we as an industry really like talking about technical skills, and they're vitally important. I mean, they're the foundational element. Alongside that, though, there are a couple of things that I think are often overlooked for graduates and cadets coming into the marketplace, and that's your general business skills. So things such as business writing. There's a better than average chance at some point, somewhere down the line, somewhere soon, someone's going to ask you to write a decent report about a particular event that occurred, and you're going to have to take that information and translate it to an audience like me who is not technical. So there is a real translation skill in that. So I would be considering things that may be a little bit lateral, like business writing. There's short courses available with that. Oftentimes, I don't know for CIT how much UX gets involved or UX theory gets involved. So there has to be a level, I suppose, of pragmatism that goes alongside developing what we do with security reports, because it has to be in the context of a particular organization and their needs. So yes, there is a framework, and that framework has to be adhered to be compliant. At the same time, too, understanding the nuance and the detail and how security can have implications across the whole draft of an organization is really significant. So understanding how to apply user design theory can actually make your life a lot easier and make your customers' lives and your clients' lives a lot more comfortable too.
Excellent, thank you. So the idea around looking at different study, not just within the technical or the cyber space, but looking at how you can actually boost that as well. And I think that goes towards looking at some of the questions that you guys were asking was around, what are interviewers looking for? How do you stand out from amongst, as we said, you've got 60 odd people on here doing a cert for currently. How do you stand out? Some of those additional skills that you can try and boost your CV, additional work experience and things like that. I know a lot of you have been talking to the guys in the chat around looking at internships and what you can do actually while you're still doing your certification. So it's a really interesting part to have a look at as well. So I think that also kind of aligns to, and some of the guys we're talking to with their different lives before they hit cyber, how you align your previous professional experiences when applying for a cyber or an ICT job. So for example, if you're coming from a non-technical background, how you then translate that into looking for a cyber job.
I'll take that. I'll mimic Damon's altruism and
throw yourself under the bus.
Look, I'm a firm believer that any experience in life is applicable. Like we are serving clients who are people, and there's a vast array of personality types and diversity in thought out there. So there's a good chance that you'll connect with someone. And much like what I said, there's an untapped seam of cyber niches that we haven't even thought of yet, that you could be the first to jump into. So rather than sort of shoehorning yourself into, pen tester or SOC analyst or GRC analyst, there's things out there that none of us, even on the panel, have even dreamt of. So yeah, don't be constrained by that. But look, I think everybody has a place. I think there's, like Damon said, that customer service side of things, the soft skills. I always say the soft stuff's the hard stuff. It's stuff that a lot of people, even technically competent, get wrong a lot of the time. So yeah, you're always bringing something to the game. So don't feel like you've got nothing to bring. It's just not true.
Yeah, if I can add to that, Brianna. So yeah, the soft skills really do matter. One of the hardest things, I guess, you'll have to do is if you're engaging with customers, and when you are, one of the hardest things that that I've had to learn personally would be writing effective emails where it's succinct, but also actually provides a good explanation of the problem at hand. Now, that's something that takes a couple of years of development, and writing is not something that's come straightforward to a lot of people. And making sure that you can be understood and that you're clear and you're succinct at what you're saying is a very important skill to have. And I had come across a lot in my previous lives that where people can be quite lacking on this, and you can differentiate yourself regardless of your technical abilities by being able to communicate effectively in that sense. So that really does set you apart, regardless of your technical prowess in this industry.
I think that's a great point, Anantha. And a lot of the time I see some assumptions that technical jobs aren't necessarily going to be customer facing or end user facing. So to kind of pull together what everybody said there, I think there's a really good thing to remember is that often your end communications of reporting, potentially even to Damon's point around business writing, is tender submissions and things like that. So being able to explain what it is that you're doing and understanding to people that are non-technical on the other side, but also the simple things like if you're in a position where you'll be entering tickets, for example, understanding that that technical information is going back to someone who doesn't necessarily understand it, and that there's a user at the end of this that needs your help in one way or the other, whether it's something very simple like resetting passwords, or potentially you're looking at severe, like high-level severity incident reporting, and understanding that, yes, you've got customers at the other end that potentially are under some kind of stress at this point. Thank you. Did anybody else want to touch on any other skills that you think would be relevant in the space, or looking at outside sorts of study or experiences they could do? Somebody was touching on one of the questions around whether Microsoft Active Directory, other sorts of cloud security things that would go alongside cyber, or are there other kinds of activities that would actually be beneficial and look favorable upon applications?
Yeah, I mean, I can tackle some of that. I guess one thing I would say is that cybersecurity, we use a special word for it, but really what it is quality. So it stretches the entire width of IT and even further outside when we're talking about people and physical security and things like that. But as a result, there's a good couple of thousand different roles in cybersecurity plus easily. So it's a little hard to be very specific about exactly what you could read up upon along the spectrum. We'll happily hang around and try and match you up with some of those resources and those skill sets. But I just wanted to put that out there straight up, that there are so many roles in cyber. When it comes to, I did see the Microsoft Active Directory, especially in Canberra and in large parts of the corporate, there's a large use of Azure. There is some on-premise. There's a lot of move to Azure. So, Microsoft are constantly giving out their free training for fundamentals, MS500, MS900, but there are Active Directory specific, authentication and identification specific courses that are constantly being released by Microsoft that you can do. In our space, federal government, there's heavy use of that technology stack. That would be definitely something that would be valuable. I agree on the soft skill side of things. It's not so easy to develop. I say that as a introvert when I started. I had to develop a lot of that on the job, learning to talk to people, get on discussions like this, for example. It's the behaviors is one of good positive behavior, willingness to get in and communicate, definitely the key things that we're looking for from a grad point of view. Honestly, if you have the energy and passion, we can put you on courses and give you all the training and learning that you need. I say this as a shelf stacker that became a security consultant. It's if you've got the energy, the pre-existing work experience and things like that is less of a problem.
I agree, Ken. Honestly, one of the things that we find for us particularly is that the technology-wise, it's more or less a theory. It's a framework. There's certain outcomes that you'll achieve through your studies. What we can't train you on is attitude and commitment. So if you're prepared to bring your best to the table and your whole self to the table, to Ken's point, chances are if you approach any one of us, we can talk about all sorts of different courses and different paths of study, but it's that commitment to the organization and frankly, what is a lifelong commitment to an evolving industry that frankly changes by the second. And if you bring that kind of attitude to the table, you're probably going to get a really warm response.
Yep. Half the technology stacks we're talking about didn't even exist 5 years ago.
Yeah, and won't 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Anantha, did you want to add anything into that?
Essentially, so yes, just to reiterate, so in terms of the what you should be developing would be you would need to look at continuous improvement. And I guess one thing I wanted to add was don't, I guess, pigeonhole yourself into a certain I guess stream that essentially in an industry that's evolving continuously, pigeonholing yourself is probably not the nicest thing you could do in terms of where you want to be, because the broader the level of experience that you obtain, the better you're going to be able to cope with any changes that happen in the industry. So just focusing on pen testing and sticking to that, it's not going to be I mean, it's a great endeavor, but just I guess aligning yourself just to one stream of thought is not probably the ideal way to go in an evolving and a fast-moving industry. So I would advise anyone to actually try your hands at everything. And try to so that you can have at least some experience in everything, so that when you do find something that you like, you could pursue it a little further. But you can also you also have that, you've had that I guess exposure to the other side of things. So it's always good to have that wide variety of areas to pursue in this industry.
Are there any programs or resources that you guys are aware of that the students could look at doing some sort of external things? So I know there's lots of different, there's CTF, so capture the flag for hacking side of things, and different kinds of resources and activities that the students can do to get that sort of breadth of experience across a few different kinds of things. So I know, there's pen tester labs have subscription services where you can go and play around in there. Is there anything that you guys would suggest would be good, I guess, scope kind of activities they could look into?
I'll have a crack. There's so much free stuff online. It's crazy. Like you said, there's pen tester labs. There's Ports will have their web academy. There's Hack the Box. There's that's just on the offensive side. On the defensive side, you've got Security Onion Essentials. That's all on YouTube, and it's a free distro, so you can look more at the defensive side. On the GRC side, like Ken said, I think you're still involved with Osaka, aren't you, Ken? Yep. Awesome resource to be able to go to those Osaka meetings to learn more about the GRC side of the house and the auditing side of the house. So there's lots of free resources out there. But I think the number one resource is just reaching out to the community, is just talking to someone and saying, hey, I want to do this, or learning about the meetups. There's a multitude of security meetups. They're not so much face-to-face at the moment, but they're definitely there. And they're incredibly valuable to just people. I've found they're always so welcoming and wanting to help you get to where you want to go and connect you with the right people. It's just amazing. So getting connected with those groups, because you will inevitably find you'll do something. Maybe you have a crack at pen testing. You go, oh, this is just not me. I don't want to tell people stuff's broken. I want to fix stuff. So you'll get more into the engineering defensive side, or to the GRC space, for example. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Is like, first of all, just do basically almost like a literature analysis and go out there and see what's out there, and there's a lot. And if you're still sort of, I still don't know if I've got everything, just reach out to the groups that exist around town.
I have to admit, for myself, when I started trying to learn a little bit more on the technical side, and it's like, sounds funny, but Reddit has a great OSINT community and a great hacking community, and there's lots of really great things. So even off looking at the global community of things that you can participate in, I found it really helpful. And they have a great community spirit where it's like you can ask what you feel like is maybe a dumb question or a silly question, and they answer it really clearly for you, which I find really great as well. What I'll try and do is grab some of these links that you guys are mentioning, if you guys have a think about it, and we'll send it out in an email for everybody to have a look at. I think the GRC one is a really important one. Just this morning I was looking at a cyber specific recruitment company, and they were saying they had a massive uptick in the last few months around GRC roles being advertised across SEEK. It was the second highest number of roles being advertised. So there's definitely a lot in that space as well that we can have a look at, that I can also send out some of that data as well to the attendees afterwards with the links around different kinds of activities.
Yep. The GRC side of the house is a little more difficult. I will say that demonstration and growth of GRC skills, we're talking about communication, understanding risk, governance of an organization. There is no test that you can take for most of those because it's really intangible skill sets. If GRC is where you want to be heading, if that's really what you enjoy, and policy and governance and things like that, I would try and get on the board of a committee somewhere, or at least get involved in the operation of, say, a not-for-profit or something like that. I found that's the best experience that I ever had about understanding how a business runs and operates, and how you report and you manage risk and all those elements. And certainly there's opportunities on local boards for that. I was on the Osaka Canberra board, fairly young actually, because they're very welcoming to do that. But I think OWASP is up and going again. I'm not too sure. I think, Andrew, you had some involvement in that?
No, earlier.
Really? Okay. I think that's run out of the ATO. Sec Talks, do you know if that's still live?
I'm not sure. Nor Seaside. So I think because they've all sort of gone into hibernation because of lockdown.
We might have to do a pulse check for some of these, and then we'll send them to you, Brianna.
Look, and I know it's the same thing. I mean, we, as you all know, this was intended to be an in-person event where we're going to have a whole bunch of people. We could stand around with a drink in hand and have a chat. And once COVID does clear our beautiful city, that will be happening again. And so we'll definitely be looking at that. And again, yes, I think you're right. Those meetups and things like that, when we're back in person, there's a great one run by in a very cyber way. I don't know his real name, but he goes by Sin. The InfoSec meetup is great. And I went along as a non-technical person, had a really great time, met some really interesting people and learned some cool stuff, and all with a cocktail in hand. So I was happy. But those sorts of things where you get that informal ability to be able to talk to people that are already in industry, whether at the level of these guys here, where they're running their own companies, or people that are currently working within the industry, and getting some of that really in-depth kind of day-to-day knowledge about what you actually do in your work to help you decide the path that you might want to take. And so as definitely we'll be putting some of these events on before the end of the year. Fingers crossed, everybody cross your fingers that we can all be in person again soon. So yeah, I definitely think that's a great idea. We talk about community in cyber, and that's a really big part of it. Being able to find some people to talk to and understand, because of the scope and breadth of cyber and the roles that you can do, it's important to understand kind of that day-to-day work. So some of the things we'll be doing, we'll be looking at having people that are currently working, just talking about what they do. They're pen testers, they're red teamers, they're SOC analysts, to understand, you guys helping to work out what your path is and what's going to be interesting. And I think sort of onto that, maybe looking at a few guys or do some forecasting. What do you guys see as the trends for cyber in the next, 3 years? Obviously, it's changed so much in the last 3 years. Do you see a particular uptick in some of the skills, in a trend towards some of the activities that we're seeing? Anantha.
I was thinking of to answer that one. Most, in terms of trends, everything, I guess, these days is moving to the cloud, and it does bring a certain level of, I guess, security questions, especially around data sovereignty and data security into perspective. I believe that will continue to dominate in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of data sovereignty and data security, and how it's actually catered for in the industry and the wider, I guess, from an Australian perspective especially. I think this ties back into what European Union's doing across over there with the EU Cybersecurity Act, where a whole heap of essentially protecting their citizens against what could be malicious actors from outside the EU. So in terms of that, so there's a centralization of essentially governments trying to protect their own citizens. So I believe security is going to be beefed up against not just information security, but the data security and privacy in terms of that. So so how organizations manage the data that's collected from people is going to matter a lot more. How organizations store that data, and the enhancement of people trying to, I guess, firewall it so that I guess countries that are not seen as friendly would not be able to access, or countries and companies based in those countries being forced to actually safeguard or to provide additional services to help the management of data and security. So that's essentially where things are moving, essentially a centralization within countries and within blocks of countries to protect their citizens. So that's what I can offer on that front.
Thanks, Anantha. Did anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I might jump in. I think there's probably 3 main things I'm keeping an eye on at the moment. The first is, I think COVID has radically changed what the future workforce looks like and where they could be working from. Though there's certainly, you can see attempts by business to bring everyone back into the office. I'm not so certain that that is going to be fully successful, and that the new norm could be entire enterprises working remotely from all number of places, and that already happens for some organizations, but I think how much that is occurring is probably going to be quite expansive moving forward. So that's a completely different security model from, say, a corporate model where all of the systems are inside the bubble and you secure them and everything is good, to things like zero trust and modifications on the zero trust model, where you are having to secure devices from all different places, all different locations, different networks going forward. And the other thing that I think is going to really start taking off, we're already seeing it to a degree, but primarily in more mature enterprises, is security tapped into infrastructure as code in enterprises, where the setup, configuration, securing of systems is all done through code. And that's a more specific skill set that I think is on its way. We see a little bit of it, but not a whole heap. We're still seeing manual setup of systems and devices, and then security comes in usually the day before go live to try and secure it. But more of that embedding of security as part of the sort of ICT life cycle.
Great, thank you, Ken. Damon or Andrew, did you want to chime in? See who gets there first.
Oh. I'm looking at Damon's mouth, waiting for him to.
I'm waiting for Andrew as well.
Look, I guess it's me then. Damn, I blinked first. Look, I'd echo like everything that's been said previously. I mean, fundamentally, we just don't know like what's going to come next. The next great tech fad that the Silicon Valley will foist upon us with zero warning. It felt a little bit that way with cloud. We've fought for years to to normalize it from a security perspective. But yeah, look, who knows what it'll be? It's just a matter of be prepared. And I guess I guess it speaks to the sort of people that are in cybersecurity. There's typically two sorts of people: those who are terrified of the unknown and those who just go anyway. And I think if you're more of the latter, you're going to be more prepared for whatever, and we don't know what will come next in the technology field. Over to you, Damon.
To be honest, Andrew, I don't think there's anything more I can add to that point.
All right, I'll shift the question then slightly and say, what are the skills that you think? Obviously, we're talking about cybersecurity trends in terms of the industry. What sort of skills do you think industry is going to be looking for or highlighting over the next few years?
I think, to be honest with you, Brianna, I think one of those, as Ken and Andrew and Anatha have pointed out, we're working in an industry that is evolving at such a rapid pace that skills that were relevant 5 years ago are becoming less so today. And I think that is just going to continue as a consistent trend. So I can't see that stopping anytime soon. So to say that, there is a particular skill set, look, if you really wanted to, if you pushed me, Microsoft is obviously a fairly big elephant in this room. It would be kind of hard to ignore anything with Microsoft attached to it. It's not like they're going to stop, creating security problems for us all anytime soon. So I'm sure there's some areas that could be worth focusing in on there.
Thank you, Damon. Anybody else?
I'd add that there's probably one skill set that's never going to go out. And on the technical side, there are a few of these, but one of them is risk management. So understanding what is risk, how you calculate it, how you, identify and mitigate and all of those sorts of things. Risk is going nowhere. And should I do my Bill Gates moment and say ever? But it's risk management is fundamental to everything. Before you cross a road, you make a risk assessment. It is built into how business decisions are made. So if I was to say on the sort of GRC softer side, but something that really helps technical people as well, is having a good understanding of risk management and how it's applied. That would definitely be something to focus on.
Yeah, and I'll extend on that. I think Ken's 100% right. Is that understanding who it is that you serve through that process. Ken mentioned before, having some sort of connection, understanding of how business works and what they care about. and that they, even if there is a high risk, they don't have to mitigate it. They can just leave it there if they don't have the money or the wherewithal to deal with it. So those that build on the soft skills to be able, and the business skills, I think will definitely do a lot better, because like there's so many options now. There's for like cybersecurity controls that you can't possibly implement them all. It just costs you a fortune. And it's just not within the means of a small to medium enterprise, and even some larger enterprises. So that understanding, as the ecosystem becomes far more complex, particularly in the cyber domain, I think that will be critical.
It's one of those things I remember from TAFE and uni is you get those scenarios where it says, build a control plan to completely resolve the issue, unlimited funding. That's the last place I ever saw anything like that. Because
that's the opposite of we have limited funding and we need you to do this many things.
Yeah, you have 3 things to choose. Everything else has to wait. No one has a money tree.
Absolutely. I've got a really interesting, specifically technical question. One of the questions was around looking at Python and scripting and how important that comes into cybersecurity. Are there certain areas where that is relevant, not relevant? Is it something that is going to stay important within the realms of cyber?
I'm happy to take that question. It's always useful, especially on a hands-on role, to have some knowledge of scripting. I find whether to automate whatever you're doing, or to actually Python is one of the easiest languages you can learn. I mean, you can make it. There are weird and wonderful things you can do with it, and it's very easy to get into. It's when we look for people, we like to look for, on top of the soft skills, when we look for technical skills, we like to consider people who have some scripting background, just to understand how our existing processes work. That's one of the best things from a technical perspective that you can add to your repertoire, is to learn some form of scripting language. This will not just help you day to day, but help you throughout your life. It just enhances how you think about different areas, and it just helps you think differently, and it speeds up a lot of the work that you might be doing very manually, and it would make your life a lot more efficient, whether in this industry or any other industry where you're essentially in front of a PC, that doing a lot of these manual tasks can be simplified a fair bit.
I would countenance that with I've spent 8 hours writing a script for something I could have done tediously over 2 hours. So also knowing when not to script is probably a good skill as well.
Yeah, that's true.
You do see Python used a lot with pen testers, demonstrating exploits and things like that as well. But like everything, Python was dead when I started the industry, and that came back alive again. I think it's useful.
JavaScript had the same moment, didn't it?
Yeah. It was going to be C# and J#. I even did J#, believe it or not. It's good for now. It is used, who knows, in the near future.
Excellent, thank you. Now, there was another question which I find interesting as well. So for the founders especially, how did you decide where you were going to focus your businesses? What were the products and services that were going to be relevant? Was that very much around the market that you decided to build a business in Canberra? As we all know, is a certain set of things that we need to do dealing with government and whatnot. But how did you decide where you were going to aim your business efforts?
Hi. Yeah, I'm happy to. Ken
Blake first.
For me, I'd like to say that there was some genius in my decision, but basically I've created a company that very much emulates the same sort of work and focus that I had ever since I was a grad. So it was something I knew how to run it. I've run businesses for other people. So it was the safest territory, I guess, to start the foundation of the business. So I understand the clients, I have a network in that space. I understood what they wanted from a services and delivery perspective. So for me, it was a fairly easy path into, I guess, that scoping of services and what we're going to do, focusing on what I know and then evolving to something else in the future.
Yeah. For me, I co-founded Terran Labs with Juan. Juan was the lab manager. He was my manager back at BAE Systems. So we decided to, I guess, target a niche industry that didn't exist other than prior to StratSec and few other larger companies didn't exist in Australia that much. For us, there's only one other, I guess, one other company, competitor in the market in Australia. But throughout the world, there's at least, I would say, about under 24 labs like us. But in Australia, we're one of two. So we decided to start here because it was something that was familiar to us. And we had the skill set that was required to undertake such an endeavor. And to date, I guess we've been quite successful in that because there have been a lot of international clients who've trusted us to, I guess, with their work. So yeah, so it is a niche industry, and there's very few people across the world who would be able to do it. And thankfully, I guess we, as the founders, had the skill set to, I guess, kick it off.
I guess my story is not dissimilar from most. I think a lot of cyber companies are born not out of good business sense, but out of a desire to do what we do, to do some good, to have some meaning, and to dispense some cybersecurity to folks who need it. I guess my advice for anyone thinking about starting a business is to do it the other way around, potentially. Like a majority of a business is math, is basically is determining, okay, what's the addressable market, how much revenue can I generate? Because if you don't do those sorts of basic math, you'll end up out of business longer than you're in business. So yeah, just being great at cyber is not enough. You need to have more than that. So yeah, that would certainly be, I think there was one question about starting cyber businesses, and that's certainly the critical one, is do your AICD, your company directors course. Like, know what your liabilities are, because if you know what your liabilities are, there's a good chance you won't do it. Yeah, and do your math, do your homework, because it's yeah, it's not all hacking stuff and playing with bits and bytes. It's usually all the boring stuff. So
I think that's a really good point. There's a lot to that as well. And I see that a lot with the companies that I work with. We have a lot of startups, and then scale-ups being the next section. And then obviously the companies that are doing incredibly well. But there's that investment speak, they call it the valley of death, which is where you have these great ideas and you know what you're doing, you know you can do it. but sometimes you get left behind by the practicalities of the day-to-day. And so understanding some of the business realities around you, and whether it's learning them yourself or partnering with someone who's really, really good at that, is always an option as well that I found in business. Now we're just going to touch on briefly, I think, now I know, Andrew, your company is DISC certified in terms of talking around security clearances and things that we can do within defence. So I know there's been some questions from some of the students around being cleared, what that means, how you do that. So I thought, Andrew, if you wanted to just do a quick run through of the process on how that works, and the others are welcome to chime in as well. Thank you.
Yep. I mean, you've touched on possibly the biggest barrier to entry in the market, which is security clearances. So there's a couple of ways to deal with this particular problem. So, I mean, we've become DISC certified. I don't know everybody else's, like the other panelists, statuses of their companies. You don't need to be. There are other ways to sponsor a clearance, but they're a little bit more sort of out of band. So I guess that's, but being DISC certified makes it certainly a lot easier, where we can sponsor our own clearances, and we can truly take a punt on someone and say, okay, look, you know, you've obviously got the passion, you've got Australian citizenship, and we will sponsor your baseline security clearance, and then we'll just see see how you go, with plenty of support. The process takes, I think, AGSFA is committed to 4 to 6 weeks to complete a baseline security clearance. So in that interim, like a lot of all the panelists here, I imagine, would quite happily find other things to do for you in that 4 to 6 weeks, to basically to ramp you up and get you ready, and probably have other, like, non-government customers as well, where that's not so much of an issue. And then once you've stepped over that threshold, it's like being typecast to a degree. Like once you're in, as much as it's a barrier to entry, it's also a barrier to exit. Like there's lots of people with security clearances and pulses who stay in situ because it's so difficult it's not that difficult, but it is more difficult than for a non-government organisation to find those resources. But yeah, it's certainly worth asking, okay, what's the path? Say you hire me tomorrow, what is going to be the path to making me feasible to the business? Because at the end of the day, it has to work it's got to work for everybody. But if it doesn't work for the business, I don't know, if any of us are going to sell our homes just to support a community of people. Like there's a cold calculus that goes on as to how we can support these sorts of folks. But that's by and large the process that most of us would take. But it's certainly worth asking how we would each go about it.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to add anything? I know, Anantha, your business at the moment is currently not doing a great deal within Australian government, so you don't have a great deal of cleared personnel at the moment, do you?
No. So we are happy to. We would. We are looking to DISP, but for other work that might involve Australian government, I guess, work. But for us, security clearances aren't the first and foremost thing in our mind. Essentially, a lot of our customers are international, so they come to us for us to provide some level of assurance about the security of their product. And yeah, so ideally, we would be happy to in the future sponsor people for security clearances, but at the moment we work with non-cleared personnel. Essentially, all we we do our basic checks, and yeah, that's about it for now. Yeah.
So the thing is that clearances aren't necessary for the work that can happen in cybersecurity. So while there's companies that absolutely do 100% cleared work, and that's a requirement, they also often are part of the program that Andrew's talking about, which I'm going to get it wrong, Defense Industry Security, I forgot program, that's what it is, which is a system in which companies are able to clear their own staff. So potentially you can start with a company without any clearance. They sponsor you through the work that you're doing to actually gain that clearance. So sometimes that's not always very clear to people that are new to the industry. But again, not every company requires that. Ken, I think are you just certified, Ken?
No, not quite old enough to get all the governance together for it. But follow a very similar process to Andrew. We have a partner that allows us to do it. So we police check before bringing someone on board, and then can sponsor them through the process. We just use another party to help us do that.
And I think that's very common with a lot of the companies that are still growing and don't quite have gone through that, because I understand DISP is not an easy process to satisfy yourself as a company. So that's not always the way through. But without clearances, there is absolutely work in the field, which I think is the point that we're trying to make today. Yeah, so we're getting very close to end of our day. Thank you very much, guys, for your help today. I think it's been wonderful. There's been a great deal of questions in the chat, which is fantastic. I'm going to ask each of you for a closing statement or suggestion or thought that you can offer our attendees today. Something to leave them with, something to look up, something to ponder. Yeah, let me know. Who wants to go first?
I'll kick it off, I guess. So I guess the main thing I can leave everyone with is to never stop trying to learn. And it's essentially this career path is constantly evolving I guess environment. So never stop trying to learn, and always try to be inquisitive and to reach out. And the people, I guess, who really get far in the industry are those who are inquisitive and not afraid to ask the questions, the right questions, to actually expand their knowledge, and that will definitely set you apart from, I guess, someone who just does the bare minimum. Yeah, I'll leave it out at that. Yeah.
Thanks, Samantha. Damon?
Yeah, why not? I could see Andrew sitting there because I wasn't going to get me.
So stare contest, so you first.
They can only see one of us at a time, so I'm sure they're just seeing one of us look a little stunned mullet at a time.
Look, I just wanted to say to everyone who attended this afternoon, thank you very much. To AusCyber for putting this on. Thank you. We really appreciate the opportunity to engage with new students and those coming into industry. And to the colleagues that I've shared the panel with today, thank you. I've really appreciated it and learned a lot myself. Look, summation thoughts from me. I think to echo what Anantha said, which is maintain your passion, maintain your curiosity, and be proactive. Don't wait for an opportunity to appear. Oftentimes, you've got to make the opportunity yourself. So by all means, I give anyone time of day if they've got the capability to find an email address for me and send me an email, or can contact me through the office and say, hey, I'm a grad and I'm interested in what A9 does. Can we talk to you a little bit? That's going to get my attention. And I'm sure that's the same for the rest of the guys on the call as well. We're all relatively time poor. Cybersecurity is a busy industry, and not only has it changed, but just when you think you're going to have a quiet day, the universe decides, no, you're not. So stuff gets thrown up in our world very, very quickly. So the more proactive you are with industry, the more you choose to take your own steps to engage, the better response you're going to get.
I'm just going to be saying, like, this is, look, yeah, I totally agree. Fortune favours the bold, they say. So those who reach out to their network are going to benefit enormously. And I think I said it briefly before, but I think one of the sort of understated resources is the very one who organised this whole event. That's Brianna. Like, if you've got questions, she's connected to everybody. Everybody talks to Brianna. Brianna talks to everybody. Just hit her up, fill her email box up full of emails.
Oh dear.
And she'll help you out.
Thank you, Andrew. Ken, you're next.
Not a lot more to say on top of that. Maybe just reiterating the point before, which is that, you know, it's easier to hire someone when they already look like the job that you're hiring them for. The same thing goes for promotion. If you're already doing the job, it's easy to promote people, but really try and invest in yourself and being able to demonstrate that you are capable of doing the role that you want. And that can be very valuable for standing out from a crowd. There's a heap of questions that probably won't get to, but I'm more than happy to be contacted through, I think, the details that are going to be sent out later, further conversations, set up other chats. I'm sure most of the panelists are happy to do that as well. So good luck.
Everybody's nodding away at the extra conversations. So it's not just my inbox, it's going to get filled up. So thank you so much to everybody for being with us today. It's been really awesome. For all the students and on the call, I hope that this was really valuable for you. I hope you learned something. I think one thing that we really showed today is there is absolutely the community that we talked about. Some of these guys have never met before. Actually, I'm not sure if any of you have met before, but you've all developed a rapport. You're all in cyber. It's all wonderful. The companies have worked together in some element, some ways, but this is part of the cybersecurity industry, is this community, the rapport, the camaraderie, and it's one of the things that I really love about it, and it's an industry that I'm really proud to be a part of. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. There will be an email I will send out afterwards. I will rack these guys' brains for some resources for you guys to play in some competitions, to do some extra study, things I think might be interesting for you. I know we didn't get to all of the questions. I apologize for that. But as I said, those conversations will always be open, and we will continue these events. Hopefully not not always over Zoom, but we'll get back in person again and do these together. Now, there is one thing that I forgot, is that we have a lucky door prize. So thank you very much to Ken and PsyConsole. They have donated a $200 voucher for educational technical supplies for you to spend on your choice of things. So whether that is a subscription to something like Pentester Labs or Hack Me, or you needed to buy maybe a Raspberry Pi, something along those lines. But I've done one of those wonderful random generator things, and our winner is, I'm going to get this wrong, I apologize, Harry Sagadraka. So I will get in touch with you, Harry. I will introduce you and Ken so you can get your prize. Congratulations. Hope you buy something really awesomely cool with that and let us know what it was. Again, thank you, everybody. I will give everybody information about how to get in touch with these guys, and we will talk soon, hopefully in person. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Yeah. Bye.
Yes. Bye.